Good day, everyone. Our first topic for this presentation is operations management. Of course, this will be our introduction for operations management. Actually, these are divided into four parts. So this will be the first part of our topic. So now, you might wonder, why are we going to study this subject, or why you need to learn operations management? Despite the fact that this is part of your curriculum, there are things that you also need to learn as to why you really need to know or have knowledge or need to study why operation management is important in our daily lives. So here are some of the reason as to why we need to study operations management. So the first is, of course, operation management uses the organization's resources to create outputs that fulfill defined market's requirement. This is the fundamental activity of any type of enterprise. Operations management is increasingly important because today's business environment requires new thinking from operations managers. At the same time, we will have a better understanding of how business are interdependent of each other and even other nations, or how countries are interdependent with other nations. That's also part of operations management. When we know and understand our role in the operation, as well as the role of the members within the organization in how we operate, then we will succeed together by collaborating. Now that we know the reason why we need to study operations management, we now proceed to our learning objectives of this course. So the first is, you will be able to define the terms operations management and supply chain, identify similarities and differences between production and service, discuss the importance why we need to learn about operations management. I think we already discussed this from the previous slide. Identify the functional areas of the organization and how it relates with each other. Define process, and process management. And of course, discuss briefly how operations management evolve. So now we're going to define operations management. According to Porter of 2011, operations management is defined as the activity of managing the resources which produce and deliver goods, for products, and service. And then by Stevenson, operations is the core of what the organization does. Operations management is responsible for managing that core. Hence, operations management is the management of systems or process that create goods and or provide services. Or sometimes goods are called products. So technically, what you're doing right now, where you are sitting, the internet connection that you have, the cell phones that you have, the search that you have, what you eat, the haircut that you get from the salon, or the mani-pedi that you get from your manicurista, or the massage probably you get from your manghililut. This individual in the production process may not be called operations manager, but actually they are one. And what they are doing to give you the product before they can provide you the service is part of operations management. So technically, in order to produce output, you have to have input and process, right? So what happens from input to output, it's called operations management, or operations in general, and there's process within. So this course, this subject that we're going to have, it involves or discusses on what happens within the organization from input, and then how it is being processed, and of course the output that we receive in terms of product or service. So now we are going to tackle the three core functions of any organization. So these are the operations in organization. So the three main or the three core functions are the marketing, including sales, of course, and promotion, the accounting and the finance function, and the operations function. Of course, the marketing is responsible for communicating the organization's product and services to its market in order to generate customer requests for service or availment of a product for that matter. The finance function, which provides the information to help economic and decision making and manages the financial resources of the organization. The operations function, of course, which is responsible for fulfilling customer requests for service through the production and delivery of products and services. If you graduate in the future, you have your majors, right? You have specific majors and some general knowledge. When you apply for a job and you get hired, actually, the organization wants you to have not only a specific knowledge of your major, for instance, what major you're in right now, and you apply for a job. And then, let's just say you're a stenographer, and you go to court. You decipher, you record. But actually, the organization does not just want you to record and know your role, know what you're supposed to do during trial. Actually, they also want you to have a general knowledge of what the organization is doing. Because yes, you're supposed to be responsible of your role, but you also need to understand the role of each department and every person in the organization. Because if you understand their role, then you can collaborate. And then if you can collaborate, then one way or another, you can create a good output. You have to understand that the marketing department, if you are, let's just say you're not a stenographer, but you are in other firms that has marketing and finance, and among these three core functions. So you have to understand that even if you are in the finance department, you should also understand the role of the marketing department and operations department. Why? If you do not understand their functions, then probably you might make decisions that will jeopardize their certain functions. Let's just say, when you're talking about marketing, they spend a lot on advertisement and communication and making sales. And if they want this much of a budget and you just said, oh, that's too much. Why too much? And you don't give them that budget, then one way or another, probably your future consumers will not be able to know what you're really selling. As you can see the advertisement in television, big companies are actually paying thousands and even millions just for a show, just for their products to be show in the advertisement. It's expensive. And then you as a finance department doesn't understand how that works, then probably you might jeopardize the role of the marketing department. And not just the marketing department, the operations as well. Because how the marketing department delivers the advertisement is coming from the operations function as to what the consumers want. Because they want to, these are the requests of the customers. That's why if you can see in advertisement, it's so elaborated, right? It's like you really going to be attracted to it. And this is not, we're not talking about hundreds here. We're talking of thousands of pesos in terms of spending. That's why organizations have to collaborate, and organizations have to understand the role of every member of the organization, so that when they collaborate and they know the role of everybody in the organization, you don't need to know, you don't need to work, do their job. You just need to understand their function, so that you can collaborate it with your own function and work together for the achievement of the objectives and the mission vision of the organization. So that is on how the functions of the organization collaborate and interrelate with each other. This is because we are all interdependent with each other. Even now in your lives, you're actually interdependent. I am also you being the learner, I being your instructor. I'm also dependent to you, and you're dependent to me, right? Learning is two-way. So we are interdependent with each other. You are going to learn as long as you're willing to learn and you understand my role and I just understand your role. The same with organization. It works that way. Okay? So I think you understand now. I hope you understand also. Now we proceed with supply chain. So what is supply chain? Supply chain is a sequence of activity and organization involved in producing and delivering a good or service. So, unsa man na siya? Supply chain? Nay kadina? No, it's not. So, a supply chain, there's both external and internal in the organization. The external part are the ones who provide the organization with, of course, the raw materials, the equipment, and other inputs to the organization, and then deliver the output, that goods to the customer. So, of course, kung na ay external, na ay internal. Ang internal is, these are the supply chain nga part sa organization itself, nga sila pod ang muhatag probably og sa kanang parts or work sa product or performing service. So, saan man siya pag-explain? Unani na siya. Kanang gagama o cake, abi sa bake shop. Bake shop, ato example. Sa sulod ana, nana siya supply chain. Of course, the external suppliers are the providers of raw materials. Harina, ang molder, ang ilang oven, mga kalamay, itlog, o guban pa. So, kung ato na ka sa internal, marag supplier within the internal, ang itabuan na is, if dako ang bake shop, let's just say, di na ito ma-mention o company, but just think of a huge bakery or a bake shop nga daghan kailang gina-produce nga mo supply na sa tibuok kalibutan or tibuok Asia inana. So katong raw materials from the external supplier, pag abot na sa sulod, na itig check of course kay inventory kung dili ba expire inana. Sunod ana kani siya mo supply na po ni siya si checker dito sa production. So sa production, so gi-separate na tong itlog probably katong harina o ubang ingredients sa pan kung sa na klaseng pan. Then human ana gikan sa yung himuon na tong pan ato na sa ilang mga machinery, sa ilang equipment nga gikan sa external supplier. And then himo na tong pan, human na to siya og need kanang ilahang kung sa need the term is need na mga machineries nga buhat ana, pagmix la ana and all. And then let's just say ang ilahang pag-package kay manual pa. So gikan ato kani si katong si equipment nga nagproduce sa bread, supply na bud siya didto sa pikas sa magputos. So sa putos na po yung muna siya putos. Si putos mingon na po siya dito sa marketing. Amo ni mo ang kuan, amo ang product. So palihog lang may marketing nga kana ganing i-advertise ning ato ang product kay para mahalin po ni tibok kalibutan or tibok Asia or asa ba. So the supplier is within the organization. Murag pasa-pasa og trabaho ba kay ang ako ang trabaho karon wala pa ni nahuman apan i-continue ni siya sa sunod nga mo trabaho inana, di ba? So this is the internal supplier within the organization. So as you can see in the figure, this is a simple product supply chain. Kabantay mo sa first is supplier supply. Supplier. Oh, di ba? Amazing. Unsa man na siya? Suppliers. So, si supplier, dapat siya supplier. So, asa man gikan tong raw material sa ato ang bake shop? Pananglitan, ang harina. Ang harina, wala man na siya nahimong harina, gitanom pa man na sa trigo or probably gamit sila potato flour or unsa ba klase nga flour nilang gigamit. So, sa pagtanom, ana, si farmer, naapa siya supplier, di ba? Kung maskin siya ni supply ani nga bake shop, wala man na diretso og harina or unsa ba dira. Kasi si farmer, napo siya supplier sa iyang mga seeds, sa iyang mga fertilizer. Di ba? Inana. If you think about it, we are in the processing world. We are all being supplied by various suppliers. Pareha kamo, kinsa may supplier ninyo load. Si supplier ninyo load, kinsa may supplier na niya load. O katupong na maligyag load, di ba? Inana ba? The same na siya sa organization. Dayon, si direct supplier. From the word direct, siya diretso. So, kung si farmer, ang iyang ihatag dito sa bake shop is katupang raw, kaya ang bake shop na nga, napot sila hilimuan siguro harina mo convert ana, direct supplier na sila. And then producer. So, the producer are turning some raw materials into the products and services that we want. For instance, if you avail of a service, lahi ang product, lahi ang goods. Product and goods are the same, but service is different. So, if you want to avail of a service, ang sa may laing service, nga makita ra kaayo ninyo sige or magamit ninyo sige. Internet connection. It is a service. So, before you can avail of this service, someone is producing it for us, for you, and who is distributing it. So, I believe we have 2 telecommunication companies in our country that are providing us with data connection or internet connection. So, they may be the distributor because they distribute the bandwidth or the internet connection to us, but they are not necessarily the producers of it. Someone is producing it or converting it from such. Or another service that we badly need every day if we have online class. Electricity. Diba? Who supplies electricity? I think we have 2 distributor here in our province. So, if we have 2 distributor here in our province, who is the producer? Diba? So, the producer is the one converting from raw materials paingon sa electricity. Si distributor, kaya wala na mo kinsa atong distributor diri sa province, sila na distribute nato. Kita man ang final customer. So, the final customer, pasabot na kato na siyang mugamit jud sa electricity. So, kita na siya. So, kita may mugamit sa electricity. So, guess na ninyo na siya. That is a simple supply chain. So, kabalo na mo nga na si supplier, na pa siya supplier, ang supplier nimo na pa siya supplier, na ay mga direct supplier, na ay mga producer, na ay mga distributor, na ay mga final customer. So, kanang distributor, mura na siya katong retailer, kung sabaga. Producer, producer, mura na kato na silang, si retailer, dito siya nipalit ni producer, kay, para, mas barato siya and the like. So, inana na siya. I think kasabot ra mo. Mga bright ba mo? Kaya nagsugod-sugod naman sa itong bake shop, sa ito na tiwala na itong bake shop, or kung ganahan mo mag-imagine noon sa company, then, pwede rapod na. Wala problema. So, the supply chain of bread. Kita mo sa drawing, hopefully maklaro ra ninyo. In every step, there is an operation. And every process involves inputs and output and various supplier in each phases. So the creation of goods or service involves transforming or converting inputs into outputs. Various inputs like labor, capital, and information are used to create goods or services using one or more transformation process. So transformation process, an example of this is storing, transporting, repairing, assembling, and the likes. And then to ensure that the desired outputs are obtained, an organization takes measurement by asking feedback. If you can see, output naman ino na kung isultion karon. But if you can see products or shampoos, para dali rin yung makita na sa inyong CR, pwede nyo doon ron. If you can see at the back of the shampoos, na siya nakasulat dito sa likod nga, comments and suggestion, call, blah, 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 number, toll free. So they want also feedback. Why do they need the feedback? Kay para po makabalo sila nga maayo ilang mga products nga himo or na may quality assurance para makabalo sila nga ilang products himo. So this is also important. And of course, to have control, they need to compare it with standards and if corrections are needed. Because even if companies are already on top of the hierarchy, they're already profitable, they also need quality control, they also need feedback, so that they can still improve their products and their services. So, kalantaw mo sa picture, nalantawa pagod ninyo maayo ba? Gikan sa farm, gikan sa farm, of course, nananom og mga trigo, o unsa pa gitanom para sa bakery supply. And then, of course, kanang iyahang mga naani nga tanong, sao man niya i-send via Bluetooth paingon sa milling company, para maghimog flour, iya ko na i-tracking. Sa tracking, kinsa may mo po, na supplier gapon, equipment, sa padira, repair, kung naguba, sa farming, naapo sa seeds, fertilizer, pesticides, energy, fuel, and the likes. Pakabot sa milling, yan ang i-deliver to iyahang trigo. Himuon na to harina. So, dito na po sa harina, equipment na po, supply na po equipment, anang machine ma-repair na po, energy na po, may na ba? Then human, ato na sa bakery. Abot bakery, equipment, kaya po suppliers, equipment, kaya so, paghimo aning pan. Repair, other ingredients, nga, dili na po, pwede ra puro sa harina, naman na yung mga baking powder, mga paalsa, uban pa, basi na cheese, kay cheese bread, uban pa dira. So, mo na siya na po laing supplier, ana. And then, kung dako na siya nga big shop, di mo distribute po na siya. So, nanapod, paingon na po fuel, tracking, sa tracking po, tires, drivers, trucks, paingon na siya sa distributors, sa mga tindahan, kung asa na nila ibaligya. Pawos tindahan, wala na dito lang to natagpan, dago kay ning pan, samot kung wala tay kwarta. So, dito na, ato na sa consumers, sa customers. So, inanaragot po na siya. Parihara na siya this is just an example, but most organization, naapo na sila inani nga paangay ba nga. Sa kada supply chain, sa kada chain, na yung mga suppliers involved. And importante na siya. So, another example probably para kabalo mo sa input, sa processing, sa output. So, dili na bake shop pa, but kanang mga dilata nga ato ang ginakaon. Sa kung sa klaseng dilata, samot itong pandemic nga daghang kitang ayudang nadawat, di ba, gikan ni politician. So, in a food processing company, sa may inputs, of course. If it is a canned vegetables or a canned fish, of course, the inputs are raw vegetables or the fish, metal sheets, kay sudlan sa imuhang vegetables, water, energy, labor, building, equipment. So, kani imuhang inputs tanan, i-process ni siya para makaproduce og output. So, the process for cleaning, making cans, cutting, cooking, packing, labeling. So, inana, para makaproduce siya output. So, kung nahimo na nimo tong process, mabot na ka sa output nga naa kay canned vegetables. So, that, kani siya nga example, mao ni siya sa goods, sa products. How about sa service? So, ato ang gamiton nga industry kay ator gyud pong i-relate sa pandemic is hospital. So what are the inputs in the hospitals? Of course, the frontliners, the doctors, the nurse, the medical technologists, the radiologists, among other, the frontliners. Of course, the hospital, the medical supplies, the equipment, the laboratories. And also man yung paagi sa pag-process ani nila. So, sa lang i-process para na ay output. So, examination probably, surgery, monitoring, medication, therapy. So, unsa may output ni hospital? Treated patient. Sa service po na siya nga side sa supply chain. And within the doctors, sarang doctors, kasi nag-supply og doctors, ang eskwelahan. Kinsay nag-supply og students sa eskwelahan, ang community. And dagan ba, kanang na mga inputs and suppliers within the supply chain. And then, this is just an elaboration. With this, makasabot na mo nga, operations management, we are living in operations and process actually. So, mag-gets na ninyo nga, inani di ay ang organization, naadyo da inani, hasula. Dagan kay mga suppliers, nga mga inani, na mga, or, nindot ang output niya, siguro maayo yung process, or maayo yung input. So, makamaymay na mo nga. You will now have an idea and knowledge that operations management is really, really important for you to understand. And, guys, this is just part 1. I will just continue with part 2 on next as our next slide and next topic. Thank you and have a good day.